All right. So today's deep dive is going to be about something I know you're really interested in, alternative energy.
Definitely.
Yeah, and this article that you sent me from Ecotisha's really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah.
It had a pretty bold claim.
Let's hear it.
It said something like, the greatest treasure in history has been found, infinite energy under the sea.
Okay, I see where this is
It
going.
definitely got my attention. I'm always up for a good treasure hunt, especially when it comes to clean energy. What about you?
Absolutely. And this isn't like some buried pirate treasure. This is something with even bigger potential. We're talking about offshore geothermal energy.
Okay, so for those of us who maybe need a little refresher, could you break down exactly what offshore geothermal energy is and why there's so much buzz around it?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, we're talking about using the heat that's below the ocean floor to make electricity. It's like
Mm.
the Earth's core is super hot, right?
Right.
And all that heat, it moves up towards the surface,
Mm.
especially in areas near those tectonic plates. And we can actually capture that heat and use it as energy.
So it's like having a power plant that runs on a volcano,
Kind of.
but without the whole, eruption risk.
Exactly. And this is a big one. Unlike solar and wind energy, which are totally weather dependent, geothermal is always there. It's consistent, reliable energy.
So you're saying it's always on.
Always on. You can think of it as the anchor of a renewable energy system.
And when they say there's a lot of it, they mean a lot. This article mentioned a crazy number, like 65,000 square kilometers of potential resources just near those tectonic plates. What's something I could compare that to? Help me wrap my head around that.
65,000 square kilometers. That's bigger than Ireland. We're talking about a massive amount of energy just waiting to be tapped into.
See, this is what I'm talking about. This isn't just about one country hitting the energy jackpot. This has global implications.
You got it. Big time. If we can get this technology right, it won't just be about energy independence for a few countries. It'll be about global cooperation, resource management, and tackling climate change together as a global community.
So we've got this potentially game-changing tech, but who's leading the charge? The article mentioned a company called CGG.
Yeah, CGG is a major player in this. They've actually been around for a while, over 25 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it'd been that long.
Yeah, they started out doing seismic surveying, mainly for oil and gas.
Okay.
But what's really interesting is their shift toward geothermal.
Yeah, the article talked about them using some seriously high-tech methods. They mentioned subsurface imaging and machine learning. What does that even mean?
Imagine giving the Earth an X-ray, but instead of bones, you're looking for heat.
Wow.
And the cool thing is, by adding in machine learning, they can analyze huge amounts of data and pinpoint the best spots for those geothermal wells.
So it's not just like randomly drilling and hoping for the best?
Not at all. It's very precise.
Yeah.
And get this, they're actually pushing for open access to their findings, especially for developing nations.
Really? You don't see that too often in the energy sector.
Nope, definitely not. It's a pretty big deal. A lot of times, new tech like this gets locked up in patents, which can leave developing countries behind. But CGG is doing things differently.
I'm curious about the how here. They filed a trademark application, right? But doesn't that usually restrict access rather than open it up?
Good question. It all comes down to patents versus trademarks. A patent protects an invention, so no one else can use it without permission. But a trademark, that just protects a brand or a specific use of a technology. So by trademarking their approach, they can prevent others from copying them directly, but still allow for innovation and development in the field.
Okay, so they're protecting their brand, but they're not shutting everyone else out completely. Pretty smart strategy.
Exactly. And this could really speed things up in terms of making offshore geothermal energy a reality worldwide.
So we're not just talking about changing how we power our world. This could completely change global development and cooperation.
Now you're getting it. And it gets even more interesting when you consider the benefits beyond just electricity, because this technology could also be huge for clean water production and even green hydrogen.
Hold on. Clean water from geothermal energy? You've got to be kidding me. How does that even work?
It's actually pretty cool how it works. So to get that geothermal energy, you have to bring up hot water or steam from deep underground.
Right, right.
And as that water comes up, you can actually remove the salt from it. Creates a whole new source of fresh water.
So it's like reverse boiling the ocean or something.
You could say that.
So not only do we get clean energy, we could actually help solve the problem of water scarcity around the world too.
Exactly. We always think about energy and water as separate issues. But offshore geothermal could be the key to solving both. And that's not even all. We could use this for green hydrogen production too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I read something about that in the article, something about using the heat to split water molecules. The science part always gets me a little lost, to be honest.
It's basically using the intense heat from the geothermal processes to power something called electrolysis. That's how we split the water, H2O, into hydrogen and oxygen. And since we're not using fossil fuels, the hydrogen we get is considered green hydrogen.
Okay, that makes a little more sense. And remind me why green hydrogen is so important.
Well, think of it this way. It's like the holy grail of clean energy because we can use it as fuel for transportation, even in factories, and it doesn't release those harmful greenhouse gases.
Okay, so now we've got clean energy, clean water, and a clean fuel source. This is starting to sound like a win-win-win, but let's be real for a second. It can't all be good, right? There have to be some downsides, some challenges with this technology.
Of course, there are always challenges.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones is the potential impact on marine life.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are talking about drilling into the ocean floor. That can't be good for the environment.
That's a valid concern, for sure. Anytime you have a big energy project, there are environmental risks. But the people who support offshore geothermal, they argue that it's way less damaging than using fossil fuels or even some big renewable projects on land.
So less impact than, say, a huge wind farm or those oil rigs.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But it's still early.
Hmm.
We need to do those in-depth environmental studies, make sure these projects are done sustainably. We can't put marine life at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't just jump into this without thinking about the consequences.
Exactly. And that leads us to another big thing, regulation and international cooperation. Remember how we talked about the global implications of this technology?
Yeah.
Well, we need to work together to avoid conflict and make sure it's developed responsibly.
So what you're saying is, just like with oil and fishing rights, we could see countries fighting over who gets to control these geothermal hotspots,
Yeah.
especially the ones out in the middle of the ocean.
Exactly. This is a big deal. We need to figure out some clear legal frameworks, how to share these resources fairly, and how to govern this whole new energy frontier. Or else we'll end up making the same mistakes we made in the past and just create more tension between countries.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. This one technology could force us to rethink how we work together as a global community, not just about energy, but about sharing resources in general.
It really is.
Yeah.
But we can't lose sight of the incredible opportunity here. Imagine countries working together instead of competing, all pushing towards the same goal.
It's a nice thought, but how do we make sure that actually happens? How do we prevent this from turning into a free-for-all with the countries that already have the most resources just grabbing up all the geothermal energy for themselves?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And there's no simple answer, but one thing is for sure. We got to start talking. Now,
So, more international agreements.
exactly. We need to figure out how to share these resources fairly, especially the ones in international waters. Maybe even come up with a whole new system for managing energy on a global scale.
So this isn't just about building some underwater power plants. We're talking about potentially changing the very way we think about geopolitics and global governance.
Absolutely. This technology could either widen the gap between the haves and have-nots, or it could be a chance to build a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone. It all comes down to the choices we make.
So what you're saying is this isn't just about some new energy source. This is a chance to have some really important conversations about cooperation, about resource management, about the kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to have these conversations. The future of energy is being decided right now.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about today. Offshore geothermal energy. It's got so much potential, so many challenges, and it all circles back to us working together.
Well said. I hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of this amazing technology and what it could mean for the future. Because the future of energy isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we create. Through the choices we make, the conversations we have, it all starts with us.
Well said. Time to dive into those conversations and start building that future. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for exploring with us.